Okay. All right. We're now going to read the last section of the selection of the time, which is the third most important Gosho according to some perspectives. And it's been what? I think it was, what did we say? It was 58 or 7, I don't know how many pages it was, but it was a lot of pages. But we're now down to about the last 12 or 15 pages. We're on page 572. We left on the question on the second column of 572 where it says, how do we come to understand it? And what the question is pertaining to is the question of, when it comes to those who maintain that the Lotus Sutra is superior to the true word teachings, this is still a bit of a comparative thing, right? About true word and the different schools and the different things, the different changes that occurred on Mount Hiei, once Dingyo was gone, and Jikaku is like the fourth in line, and he's taken true word into the realm of the priesthood on Mount Hiei, where the Mahayana ordination platform is still in play and in charge, right? So there's sort of a little bit of a conflict to talk about Jikaku the way he has, okay, because he's trying to straighten things back out again. And so, a question, when it comes to those who maintain that the Lotus Sutra is superior to those, so they're not even posing the question as a given. To those who maintain that this Lotus Sutra is superior to the true word teachings, which Dingyo did, should they try to make use of these commentaries by Jikaku, or should they reject them? And of course, Jikaku has had this dream where he shot the sun with an arrow, okay, and it came tumbling down. And he called that a great omen, and that was the thing that qualified that, yes, we should do the true word ceremonies over the Lotus Sutra. So then, that's what this has all been saying. And now we go to this question that we're going to start on 572, where it says, how do we come to understand it? All right, so the answer is, from the Daishonin, we understand it when we realize that the source of Jikaku's delusion was the dream that he had after he had written his commentaries asserting that the true word teachings are superior to the Lotus Sutra. If his dream had been an auspicious one, then we would have to conclude that Jikaku was correct in claiming that the true word teachings are superior. But can a dream of shooting the sun be called auspicious? Just try to find anywhere in all the 5,000 or 7,000 volumes of Buddhist scriptures, or in the 3,000 or more volumes of non-Buddhist literature, any evidence suggesting that to dream of shooting the sun is an auspicious occasion. Let us look at a few pieces of evidence. Pardon me. King Ajatashatru. Everybody knows who that is, right? Okay, Ajatashatru was like that evil guy who killed raped his mother or something and killed his father, okay, to become king. He was a disciple of Devadatta, okay? He broke out in sores and was so miserable he was about to die, and Shakyamuni came and cured him, okay? And so he's another one of the three. King Ashoka, Devadatta, and Ajatashatru are all examples of evil people that can attain Buddhahood.
Even if they were evil.
Yes, there's no good or bad. It's just two right. Okay, so King Ajatashatru dreamed that the moon was falling out of the sky. When he consulted the high minister, Jivaka, the latter said, this is a sign of the Buddha's passing. And when Sudhadra also dreamed that the sun was falling from the sky, he said to himself, this is a sign of the Buddha's passing. If you wanted to, if you didn't have a copy of this, you can get this on your phone right now. Okay. When the Asharas, I've been saying it wrong, when the Asharas fought with the Lord Chakra, they first all shot arrows at the sun and the moon. The evil rulers, King Xie of the Xia dynasty and King Chao of the Yin dynasty in ancient China, are both said to have repeatedly shot arrows at the sun, and both destroyed themselves and brought an end to their dynasties. Lady Maya dreamed that she conceived the son and thereafter gave birth to Prince Siddhartha, who in time became the Buddha Shakyamuni. For this reason, the Buddha's name as a child was Sun Seed. Japan, or Nihon, meaning source of the sun, is so called because it is the land of the sun goddess. In light of these examples, Jikaku's dream must mean that he used his two commentaries as arrows to shoot at the sun goddess. The great teacher Dengyo, Shakyamuni Buddha, and the Lotus Sutra, I Nichiren, he shot arrows at the sun goddess, at the great teacher Dengyo, Shakyamuni Buddha, and the Lotus Sutra. I Nichiren am an ignorant man, and I know nothing about the sutras or treatises. But I do know this much. Anyone who would conclude from such a dream that the true word teachings are superior to the Lotus Sutra will surely in his present life destroy his nation and ruin his family, and after his death will fall into the Avicii hell. We, in fact, have a piece of evidence to settle the matter. If, when Japan and the Mongol forces engaged in combat, the prayers of the true word priests had proved effective and Japan had won victory on that account, then we might be persuaded that the true word school is worthy of respect. But at the time of the Jokyu disturbance, though a considerable number of true word priests prayed for the victory of the imperial forces, the emperor's people, and invoked curses on the forces of the Kamakura shogunate, the shogunate's the one that took over. The leader of the latter, acting administrator Hojo Yoshitoki, emerged victorious. As a result, the retired Emperor Gotoba was exiled to the province of Oki, and his sons were exiled to the island of Sado and to another province. Such was the effect of the true word prayers for victory. So he's saying the true word prayers didn't help at all. Okay, right? In the end, the true word prayers were like the cries of a fox that gives him away, and the curses, as the Lotus Sutra says, rebound upon the originator. The 3,000 priests of Mount Hiei were also attacked by the Kamakura troops and forced to submit, even though, again, Jikaku has changed it over to more of a true word temple. Now the Kamakura government is at the height of power. Therefore, the true word priests of Toji, Mount Hiei, Onoji, and the 7 major temples of Nara, along with those priests of the Lotus School who have forgotten the teachings of their own school and instead slander the law, have all made their way east to the Kanto region, where they bow their heads, bend their knees, and seek in various ways to win over the hearts of the warriors. They are in turn assigned positions as superintendents or chief officials of various temples and mountain monasteries, where they proceed to follow the same evil doctrines that earlier brought about the downfall of the imperial forces, using them to pray for the peace and safety of the nation. The shogun and his family, along with the samurai who are in their service, very likely believe that as a result of such prayers, the nation will actually become peaceful and secure. But so long as they employ the services of priests who invite grave disaster by ignoring the Lotus Sutra, the nation will in fact face certain destruction. Continuing on page 574. Pardon me. When I think how pitiful it would be if the nation were to be destroyed, and how lamentable would be the loss of life involved, I feel that I must risk my own life in order to make the truth of the situation clear. If the ruler desires the security of the nation, he should question the manner in which things are proceeding and try to discern the truth. But instead, all he does is listen to the calumnies of the others, and in one way or another treat me with animosity. In past ages, when there were those who slandered the laws, Brahma, Shakra, the gods of the sun and the moon, the 4 heavenly kings, and the deities of the earth, all of whom have sworn to defend the Lotus Sutra, would look on with disapproval. But because there was no one to proclaim the matter aloud, they would be forgiving as one would be with an only child who misbehaves. At times, pretending not to notice such slander, at times administering a mild reproof. But now that I am present to make clear the matter. However, I can only be amazed that the ruler should continue to listen to persons who slander the law. Yet he does so, and on the contrary, goes even so far as to persecute the rare individual who attempts to enlighten him and rescue him from error. Not for 1 or 2 days, 1 or 2 months, or even 1 or 2 years, but for a number of years on end now, I have met with greater difficulties than the sticks and staves that Bodhisattva Never Disparaging was obliged to face, and have encountered more fearful opposition than the murderous attacks inflicted on the monk realization of virtue. During this period, the 2 great kings, Brahma and Shakra, the gods of the sun and the moon, the 4 heavenly kings, the gods of the stars and the deities of the earth. Okay, so Brahma, Shakra on the Butsudan, the gods of the sun and the moon on the Butsudan, the 4 heavenly kings on the Butsudan, on the Gohonzon. The 2, Brahma and Shakra, the gods of the sun and the moon, the 4 heavenly kings, the gods of the stars and the deities of earth, have manifested their anger in various ways and again have delivered reprimands. And again, I meant to say, those are all on the Gohonzon. And yet, the attacks on me have only worsened. Finally, heaven in its wisdom has made the situation known to the sages of the neighboring countries, enlisting them to add to their reprimands, and has caused the great evil spirits to enter the nation and deceive the people's hearts, inciting them to rebel against their own rulers. It is only reasonable to assume that whether good or evil, the greater the portents, the greater will be the occurrences to follow. Now we have seen huge comets of a magnitude never known before in the 2,230 or more years since the Buddha's passing, and have experienced earthquakes such as were never encountered before during that time. In China and Japan in the past, sages of outstanding wisdom and ability have from time to time appeared, but none as an ally of the Lotus Sutra has faced such powerful enemies within his country as have I, Nichiren. From the facts present before your very eyes, it should be apparent that Nichiren is the foremost person in the entire land of Jampadvipa. In the 700 and more years since Buddhism was first introduced to Japan, there have been 5,000 or 7,000 volumes of sutras read, and 8 or 10 schools propounded. The people of wisdom who have appeared have been as numerous as rice and hemp seedlings, and those who have spread the teachings widely have been as plentiful as bamboo plants and rushes. And yet of all the various Buddhas, there is none more highly revered and none whose name is more widely called upon than the Buddha Amida. This practice of invoking the name of the Buddha Amida was abdicated by Eshin in his work Essentials of Rebirth in the Pure Land, and as a result, 1/3 of the people of Japan became believers in the Nimbutsu and the calling on the name of Amida. When Yokan wrote the 10 conditions for rebirth in the Pure Land and the rituals of the assembly for rebirth in the Pure Land, 2/3 of all the people of this country became followers of the Nimbutsu. And when Honnin wrote the Nimbutsu chosen above all, then everyone alike in this nation became a Nimbutsu devotee. Thus, these people who chant the name of the Buddha Amida these days are by no means disciples of only one person. This thing called the Nimbutsu is a daimoku or chant based on the 2-volumed meditation and Amida Sutras, which are provisional Mahayana sutras. If the daimoku of provisional Mahayana is widely propagated and spread abroad, it must be a prelude to the propagation of the daimoku of the true Mahayana, must it not? People who have a mind for such concerns should consider this matter carefully. If the provisional sutras are spread abroad, then the two sutra will surely be spread abroad. If the daimoku of the provisional sutras is spread abroad, then the daimoku of the true sutra will also surely be spread abroad. You understand what he's talking about, right? He's saying if the Amida Sutras are being propagated and propagated successfully, at some point in time, the Lotus Sutra will be propagated and spread appropriately. In all the 700 and more years from the time Emperor Kime to the present Emperor Gouda, such a thing has never been seen or heard of, namely, a wise man, he's talking about himself, who urges others to chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and who chants it himself. When the sun rises, the stars go into hiding. When a worthy king appears, foolish kings perish. When the true sutra is spread widely, the provisional sutras will cease to circulate. And when a man of wisdom chants Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, those ignorant of it will follow after him as shadow follows along, such as shadows follow a form and echoes follow a sound. There can be no room to doubt that I, Nichiren, am the foremost votary of the Lotus Sutra in all of Japan. Indeed, from this we may assume that even in China and India and throughout Jampadvipa, there is no one who can stand side by side with me. So he's not bashful about qualifying what he believes and perceives of his own Buddha nature. Question. That's why there's no problem for us too as well. Page 575. The great earthquake of the Shoka era, the huge comet of the Brunei era, what caused these to appear? Answer. Tentai says, wise men can perceive the cause of things as snakes know the way of snakes. And since I'm a snake, you're the snake. I've always loved that. Wise men can perceive the things, the cause of things such as snakes can know the way of snakes. What question? Top of page 575, second column. What do you mean by this statement? Answer. When Bodhisattva superior practices appeared from beneath the earth, ceremony in the air, emerging from the earth, the other bodhisattvas such as Maitreya, Manjushri, perceiver of the world's sounds, and medicine king, though they had severed themselves from the first 41 of the 42 levels of ignorance, had not yet severed themselves from the last one, or fundamental darkness. Hence, they were in effect ignorant persons and consequently failed to understand that this bodhisattva superior practices had been summoned so that he might widely propagate Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Now he's talking about himself again there. You understand that, right? Okay. So that he might widely propagate Nam-myoho Renge-kyo of the lifespan chapter in the latter day of the law. So it's again, he's talking about the hidden in the depths part. Only he is brought forth. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo doesn't exist before Nichiren. So when he qualifies something as clearly as Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, we know he's talking about him, and we know he's talking about the teaching that we practice. All right? Question. Is there anyone in Japan, China, or India who understands this matter? Answer. Even the great bodhisattvas who have eradicated the illusions of thought and desire had severed themselves from the 41 levels of ignorance and severed themselves from the 41 levels of ignorance cannot understand such a thing. How then could persons who have not rid themselves of even one iota of illusion be expected to do so? So he's saying, I don't expect anybody to understand what I'm saying about myself or the teaching that I'm propagating, the depth and the correctness of it. Question, but if there's no wise person who understands why these calamities have arisen, then how can proper steps be taken to deal with them? If one does not understand the origins of an illness, though one may try to treat the sick person, the treatment will surely fail and the patient will die. Now, if the people resort to prayers without understanding the basic cause of these disasters, can there be any doubt that the nation will in time face ruin? Ah, how dreadful to think of it. And so then the answer from the Daishonin is, they say that snakes know 7 days in advance when a heavy rain is going to occur, and that crows know what lucky or unlucky events are going to take place in the course of a whole year. This must be because snakes are followers of the great dragons who make the rain fall, and crows have for a long time studied such such matters as divination, being able to perceive things. Now I am only divination. Now I am only an ordinary person, and therefore have no understanding of the cause of these disasters. Nevertheless, I believe I can generally instruct you concerning this matter. In the time of King Ping of the Chao dynasty, persons appeared who let their hair hang down and went about naked. A court official named Xin Yu divined on the basis of this and said, within 100 years this dynasty will come to an end. In the time of King Yu of the Chao, the mountains and rivers collapsed and were destroyed, and the river and the earth shook. A courtier named Po Yang observed this and said, within 12 years our great ruler will meet with some dire happening. Now the great earthquake and the huge comet that have appeared are calamities brought about by heaven, which is enraged because the ruler of our country hates Nichiren and sides with the Zen, Nimbutsu, and True Word priests who preach doctrines that will destroy the nation. Question: how can I believe that? Answer: the Sovereign King Sutra says, because evil people are respected and favored and good people are subjected to punishment, the stars and constellations, along with the winds and rains, all fail to move in their proper seasons. If the passage from the sutra is correct, then there can be no doubt that evil people exist in this country and that the ruler and his ministers put their trust in such people. Moreover, there can be no doubt that a wise person exists in this country and that the ruler of the nation hates and treats him as an enemy. The same sutra says, the deities of the heaven, of the 33 gods, will all feel rage in their hearts, and strange and unusual shooting stars will fall to earth. 2 suns will come out at the same time. Marauders will appear from other regions, and the people of the country will meet with death and disorder. Already in this country we have had unusual disturbances in the heavens as well as strange occurrences on earth, and the men of a foreign country have come to attack us. Can there be any doubt that the 33 heavenly gods are angry? The benevolent King Sutra states, evil monks, hoping to gain fame and profit, in many cases appear before the ruler, the crown prince, or other princes, and take it upon themselves to preach doctrines that lead to the violation of the Buddhist law and the destruction of the nation. The ruler, failing to perceive the truth of the situation, listens to and puts faith in such doctrines. The same work also refers to a time when the sun and moon depart from their regular courses, when the seasons come in the wrong order, when a red sun or a black sun appears, when 2, 3, 4, or 5 suns, appear at the same time, when the sun is eclipsed and loses its light, or when 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 coronas appear around the sun. These passages mean that if evil monks fill the nation and deceive the ruler, the crown prince and other princes, preaching doctrines that lead to the violation of the Buddhist law and the downfall of the nation, and if the ruler and the other high officials allow themselves to be deceived by these monks and come to believe that such doctrines will in fact assure the protection of the Buddhist law and the nation, and act accordingly, then the sun and moon will behave strangely, and great winds, rains, and fires will make their appearance. Next will come internal disorder, relatives and kin turning against one another and bringing about armed revolt. Many allies and supporters of the ruler and other high officials will be struck down, and then invaders will come from other nations to attack them until they are forced to commit suicide or captured alive or obliged to surrender. This will come about entirely because they heed doctrines that lead to the destruction of the Buddhist law and cause the downfall of the nation. The Protection Sutra says the teachings preached by the thus come one Shakyamuni cannot be in the least bit harmed by the various devils of heaven, or by non-Buddhists, or by evil men, or by seers who have attained the 5 transcendental powers, and yet they can be so thoroughly destroyed by those evil monks who are monks in name and appearance, only that nothing whatsoever remains of them. In this respect, they are like Mount Sumeru. Though one might gather all the great grass and wood from a major world system, pile them up as fuel, and burn it for a long period of time, Mount Sumeru would not suffer the least degree of injury. But when the conflagration that marks the end of the kalpa or of decline breaks out, and fire appears from within the mountain itself, Then in an instant the whole mountain will be consumed by the flames, and not even ashes will remain. The lotus-like face sutra says, the Buddha said to Ananda, the lotus-like face sutra says, the Buddha said to Ananda, it is like the case of a lion who has died. No creature that lives in the air, in the soil, in water, or on land will venture to eat the flesh of the dead lion. Only the worms that are born from the body of the lion itself will feed on the lion's flesh. You understand what he's saying, right? He's saying only the practitioners, the supposed believers that distort or change their faith can destroy the power of the Lotus Sutra. In the same way, Ananda, the Buddha's teachings cannot be destroyed by outside forces. But the evil monks who exist within the body of my teachings, they are the ones who will destroy these teachings that the Buddha has labored over and worked to establish for a period of 3 great asamyak kalpas. He's really talking still about Jikaku. What do these passages from the sutras mean? In the past, the Buddha Kashyapa described to King Kirki in the latter day of the law. In the past, Buddha Kashyapa described to King Kirki the latter day of the law of the thus come one Shakyamuni, and revealed what sort of people would destroy Shakyamuni's teachings. Don't forget, that's why it's the 5th 500-year period. The Lotus Sutra has become a provisional teaching because it's been distorted so much by the supposed wise men that have been preaching it. Evil men might appear, such as King Mihirakula, who burned all the Buddhist halls and monasteries of India and murdered all the monks and nuns of its 16 major states, or Emperor Wuzong of China, who destroyed more than 4,600 temples and pagodas in the 9 regions of China and forced 260,500 priests and nuns to return to lay life. But such men could not destroy the teachings preached by Shakyamuni Buddha. It is the priests themselves who wrap their bodies in 3 robes, in the 3 robes permitted to them, hang a single begging bowl around their necks, store up in their minds the 80,000 teachings, and with their mouths recite the 12 divisions of the scriptures. They are the ones who will destroy the Buddhist teachings. It is like the case of Mount Sumeru, the Golden Mountain. Though one might gather all the grass and wood in the major world system, pile them up until they are completely filled, till they completely filled the heaven of the 4 heavenly kings, as well as the other 4 heavens of the world of desire, and burn them for 1 year, 2 years, 100 years, 1,000, 10,000, or 1,000,000 years, the mountain will not suffer the slightest. It will not suffer the slightest injury. But when the time comes for the great fire that ends the kalpa of decline, a tiny flame no bigger than a bean will break out at the base of the mountain, and not only will Mount Sumeru be consumed, but the entire major world system would likewise be destroyed. If the Buddhist predictions are to be believed, then it would appear that the Buddhist priests of the 10 schools or the 8 schools of our country will be the ones to burn up the Mount Sumeru of the Buddhist teachings. The priests of the Hinayana schools of the Dharma Analyst Treasury, establishment of truth and precepts will be the flames of anger that burn with jealous hatred of the Mahayana schools. And priests such as Shanwu Wei of the True Word School, San Chie of the Zen School, and Shantao of the Pure Land School are the worms that are born from the body of the lion that is the Buddha's teachings. The great teacher Dingyo, in his writings, described the eminent scholars of the 3 treatises, Dharma Characteristics, Flower Garland, and other schools of Japanese Buddhism as 6 kinds of worms. I. Nichiren would dub the founders of the True Word Zen and Pure Land schools the 3 kinds of worms, and Jikaku, Anan, and Ishin of the Tendai school, the three worms who devoured the lion body of the Lotus Sutra and the great teacher Dingo. Okay, because these were all high priests in the lineage of Mount Hiei after they diluted Dingo's qualification that the Lotus Sutra is the highest teaching. So long as Nichiren, so those were the three schools of thought, and then the three main people from Mount Hiei who adopted them and introduced them to Mount Hiei, and that's what corrupted Mount Hiei, okay? And that's why it's declined. So long as Nichiren, who is working to expose the root of these great slanders against the correct teaching, is treated with animosity, the heavenly deities will withhold their light. The gods of the earth will be angered, and disturbances and calamities will appear in great numbers. You must understand that because I speak concerning the most important matter in the entire land of Jampavipa, my words are accompanied by portents of the first magnitude. How tragic, how pitiful that all the people of Japan should fall into the great citadel of the hell of incessant suffering. But how fortunate, how joyous to think that with this unworthy body, I have received in my heart the seeds of Buddhahood. Just see how it will be, he says on page 578, second column. Just see how it will be when tens of thousands of armed ships from the great kingdom of the Mongols come over the sea to attack Japan. Everyone from the ruler on down to the multitudes of common people will turn their backs on all the Buddhist temples and all the shrines of the gods and will raise their voices in chorus crying, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. They will press their palms together and say, Priest Nichiren, save us. In India, King Mihirakula was obliged to press his palms together in submission before King Baladitya. And in Japan, Tiara no Munemori was forced to pay reverence to Kajiwara Kagetoki. This is in accord with the principle that men of great arrogance should end by bowing before their enemies. Those victorious and arrogant monks described in the Lotus Sutra in the beginning armed themselves with sticks and staves and used them to belabor Bodhisattva, never disparaging. But later they pressed their palms together and repented of their error. Devadatta inflicted an injury on Shakyamuni Buddha and that drew blood. But when he was on his deathbed, he cried out, Namu devotion, or Namu. He cried out Namu, which means devotion. All right? If only he had been able to cry Namu Buddha, devotion to the Buddha, he would have been spared the fate of falling into hell. But so grave were his deeds he had committed that he could only utter the word Namu and could not pronounce the word Buddha before he died. And soon the eminent priests of Japan will no doubt be trying to cry out, Namu Nichiren Shonin, devotion to the sage Nichiren. But most likely they will only have enough time to utter the word Namu. How pitiful, how pitiful. Top of page 579. In the secular text it says, a sage is one who fully understands those things that have not yet made their appearance. And in the Buddhist text it says, a sage is one who knows the three existences of past, present, the three existences of life, past, present, and future. 3 times now I have gained distinction by having such knowledge. The first time was the first year of the Bunno era, 1260, cyclical sign Kanoe Saru, on the 16th day of the 7th month, when I presented on establishing the correct teaching for the peace of the land to his lordship, the lay priest Saimyo-ji, by way of the lay priest Yadoya Mitsunori. At that time, I said to the lay priest Yodoya, please advise his lordship that devotion to the Zen school and the Nembutsu school should be abandoned. If this advice is not heeded, trouble will break out within the ruling clan and the nation will be attacked by another country. The second time was the 12th day of the 9th month of the 8th year of the Brunei era, 1271, at the hour of the monkey, between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock p.m. When I said to Heinosema Nojo, Nichiren is the pillar and beam of Japan. Doing away with me is toppling the pillar of Japan. Immediately you will all face the calamity of a revolt within one's own domain, or strife among yourselves. And so the calamity of invasion, and also the calamity of invasion from foreign lands. Not only will the people of our nation be put to death by foreign invaders, but many of them will be taken prisoner. All of the Nimbutsu and Zen temples, such as Kinshoji, Jufukuji, Gorakuji, Daibutsu-jin, and Chorakuji, should be burned to the ground and their priests taken to Yui Beach and have their heads cut off. And if this is not done, then Japan is certain to be destroyed. Top of the second column, page 579. The third time was the 8th day of the 4th month of last year, the 11th year of the Brunei era, when I said to Heinosei Minoji, even if it seems that because I was born in the ruler's domain, I follow him in my actions, I will never follow him in my heart. There can be no doubt that the Nimbutsu leads to the hell of incessant suffering, and that the Zen school is the work of the heavenly devil. Kind of partial four dictums there. And the true word school in particular is a great plague to this nation of ours. The task of praying for victory over the Mongols should not be entrusted to the true word priests. If so, a grave matter is entrusted to if so grave a matter is entrusted to them, then the situation would only worsen rapidly and our country will face destruction. Heinosema Nojo Yoritsuna then asked, when do you think the Mongols will attack? I replied, the sacred scriptures do not indicate the time, but the signs show that heaven is extremely angry. It would appear that the attack is imminent. It will probably occur before this year has ended. Yet it was not I, Nichiren, who made these three important pronouncements. Rather, it was in all cases the spirit of the thus come one Shakyamuni who had entered into my body. And having personally experienced this, I am beside myself with joy. This is the all-important doctrine of the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, taught in the Lotus Sutra. What does the Lotus Sutra mean when it says the reality, the true aspect of all phenomena, consists of the appearance, nature, entity, and so forth? Appearance, the first of the 10 factors of life, is the most important of them all. This is why the Buddhas appear in the world. Wise men can perceive the cause of things as snakes know the way of snakes. Little streams come together to form the great ocean, and the tiny particles of dust accumulate to form Mount Sumeru. When I, Nichiren, top of first column 580, when I, Nichiren, first took faith in the Lotus Sutra, I was like a single drop of water or a single particle of dust in all the country of Japan. But later, when 2 people, 3 people, 10 people, and eventually 100, 1,000, 10,000, and 1,000,000 people come to recite the Lotus Sutra and transmit it to others, then they will form a Mount Sumeru, a perfect enlightenment, an ocean of great nirvana. Seek no other path by which to attain Buddhahood. Question: at the time of your second pronouncement on the 20th day of the 9th month of the 8th year of the Brunei era, when you incurred the wrath of the authorities, how did you know that if harm was done to you, rebellion would break out and the country would also be attacked by armies from abroad? Answer: the 50th volume of the Great Collection Sutra states, there may perhaps be various kings of the Kshatriya class who act in a way contrary to the law, causing anguish to the voice-hearer disciples of the world-honored one. Perhaps they may curse and revile them, or beat and injure them with swords and staves, or deprive them of their robes and begging bowls and the other things they need, or perhaps they may restrain and persecute those who give alms to the disciples. If there should be those who do such things, then we will see to it that their enemies in foreign lands rise up suddenly of their own accord and march against them, and we will cause uprisings to break out within their states. We will bring about pestilence and famine, unseasonable winds and rains, and contention, wrangling, and slander. And we will make certain that those rulers do not last for long, but that their nations are brought to destruction. There are many passages such as this in the sutras, but I have chosen this one because it is particularly pertinent to the times and to my own position. Page 580, second column. Pardon me. In this passage, the beings who are speaking are all the deities of the threefold world, including Brahma, Shakra, and the double king of the sixth heaven, the gods of the sun and the moon, the four heavenly kings, and all the dragons. Many of them are on the Gohonzon. These eminent beings appeared before the Buddha and took a vow, declaring that after the Buddha's passing in the former, middle, and latter days of the law, if there should be monks of erroneous belief who complain to the ruler concerning one who practices the correct teaching, and if those who are close to the ruler or who are loyal to him should simply accept the word of these monks because of respect for them, and without inquiring into the truth of the matter, heap abuse and slander on this wise person, then they, the deities, would see to it that, though there may have been no reason for such an occurrence, major revolt would suddenly break out within that country, and in time the nation would also be attacked by another country, so that both the ruler and his state would be destroyed. On the one hand, I am delighted to think that my prophecies shall come true. Yet on the other hand, it pains me deeply. I have not committed any fault in my present existence. All I have done is try to repay the debt I owe to the country of my birth by endeavoring to save it from disaster. That my advice was not heeded was certainly a cause of great regret to me. Not only was it not heeded, but I was summoned before the authorities, and the scroll of the 5th volume of the Lotus Sutra was snatched from the breast of my robe, and I was harshly beaten with it. In the end, I was arrested and paraded through the streets of the city. At that time, I called out, "You gods of the sun and the moon up in the sky, here is Nichiren meeting with this great persecution. If you are not ready to risk your own lives to aid me, does this mean then that I am not the votary of the Lotus Sutra? If that is so, then I should correct my mistakes, my mistaken beliefs at once. If, on the other hand, Nichiren is the votary of the Lotus Sutra, then you should come send some sign of that fact to this country at once. If you do not do so, then you, the gods of the sun and the moon, and all the other deities will be no more than great liars who have deceived Shakyamuni many treasures in the Buddhas of the 10 directions. Devadatta was guilty of falsehood and deception, and Kokalika was a great liar, but you deities are guilty of telling lies that are 100,000, 10,000, million times greater. I had no sooner uttered these words than the nation was suddenly faced with internal revolt. Since the country has fallen into grave disorder, although I may be a mere common mortal of no social standing, so long as I uphold the Lotus Sutra, I deserve to be called the foremost great man. I deserve to be called the foremost great man in all Japan at this time. Question: In the delusion that is arrogance, there are different types of arrogance, such as the 7 types, the 9 types, and the 8 types. But your arrogance, Nichiren, is 100,000, 10,000, million times greater than the greatest degree of arrogance defined in the Buddha's teachings. The scholar Gunapradha refused to bow before Bodhisattva Maitreya, and the great arrogant Brahmin made himself a dais supported by four legs representing the four sages Maheshvara, Vishnu, and Narayana, along with Shakyamuni Buddha. Mahadeva, though only a common mortal, declared that he was an arhat, and the scholar Vimala Mitra proclaimed himself foremost within the 5 regions of India. These men were all guilty of faults that condemned them to the Avicii hell, or the hell of incessant suffering. How then do you dare claim that you are the wisest man? This is a question to Nichiren. Then how then do you dare to claim that you are the wisest man in the entire land of Jampadvipa, which would be not just Japan, but be in the whole world? Will you not fall into hell like the others? What a frightful thing to do. Answer: you have really understood the meaning of the 7 types of arrogance. Have you really understood the meaning of the 7 types of arrogance, or the 9 types, or the 8 types? The world-honored one of great enlightenment declares, I am the foremost throughout the threefold world. All the non-Buddhist leaders predicted that heaven would surely punish him immediately, or that the earth would open up and swallow him, but no such thing happened. The 300 or more priests of the 7 major temples of Nara asserted that the priest Saicho, Dengyo, the great teacher Dengyo, was an incarnation of Mahadeva, bad dude, or the iron belly Brahmin. Nevertheless, heaven did not punish him, but on the contrary, protected him in various ways, and the earth did not open up and swallow him, but remained as hard as a diamond. The great teacher Dengyo founded a temple on Mount Hiei and became the eyes of all living beings. In the end, priests of the 7 major temples acknowledged their fault and became his disciples, and the people of the various provinces throughout the country became his lay supporters. Thus, when someone who is superior declares that he is superior, it may sound like arrogance, but that person will in fact receive great benefits because he is actually praising the law that he embraces. The great teacher Dengyo said that the Tendai school is superior to the other schools because of the sutra that it is founded on. Therefore, in declaring its superiority, it is not simply praising itself and disparaging others. The 7th volume of the Lotus Sutra states, just as among all the mountains, Mount Sumeru is foremost, so this Lotus Sutra is likewise. Among all the sutras, it holds the highest place. The sutras that the Buddha preached earlier, such as the Flower Garland, Wisdom, Mahavrochana Sutras, the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra, which he preached at the same time as the Lotus Sutra, and the Nirvana Sutra, which he was to preach later, altogether amounting to 5,000 or 7,000 volumes, as well as the sutras of the land of India, the Dragon King's palace, the heaven of the 4 heavenly kings, the heaven of the 33 gods, and the sun and the moon, and those of all the worlds in the 10 directions, are lesser mountains, such as the dirt mountains, the black mountains, the small iron encircling mountains, or the great iron encircling mountains, in comparison to this Lotus Sutra that has been brought to Japan, for it is comparable to Mount Sumeru. The 7th volume also says, a person who can accept and uphold this sutra is likewise foremost among all living beings. Let us consider what this passage means. The other sutras have their upholders. Thus, the Flower Garland Sutra is upheld by the Bodhisattva's universal worthy, Moon of Deliverance, Nagarjuna, and Ashwagosha. The great teacher Fa Tsang, the teacher of the nation, Qin Liang, Princess Wu, and the preceptor Shinjo, and the administrator priest Robin, and Emperor Shomu. The profound secrets and wisdom sutras have as their supporters Bodhisattva's superlative truth appearing, the venerable Subhuti, the great teacher Chiashan, the Tripitaka master Suangtang, the emperors Tai Tsung, Kao Tsung, the priests Kanroku and Doshu, and the emperor Kotoku. Upholding the Mahavrochana Sutra of the True Word School are Vajravada and the Bodhisattva Nagarjuna and Nagabodhi, King Satsvahana, the Tripitaka masters Shan Wu Wei, Qing Kang Chi, and Pu Kung, the emperors Xuan Tsung and Tai Tsung, Hu Kuo, and the great teachers Kobo and Jikaku, and upholding the nation, and upholding the Nirvana Sutra of Bodhisattva Kyashapa, the 52 types of beings, and the Tripitaka master Dharmarsha Fa Yun of Kwang Chi Tzu Temple, and the 10 eminent priests, three from southern China and 7 from northern China, also embraced the sutras other than the Lotus Sutra. But if, in contrast to all these, the ordinary people in the evil world of the latter age, who do not observe a single one of the precepts and who appear to others as Ikchantikas, firmly believe, as the sutra states, that there is no path to Buddhahood outside of the Lotus Sutra, which surpasses all other sutras preached before, at the same time, or after it, then such people, though they may not have a particle of understanding, are 100,000, 10,000, million times superior to those great sages who uphold other sutras. That is what this passage from the Lotus Sutra is saying. Among the supporters of the other sutras, there are some who encourage other people to uphold such sutras temporarily as a step toward leading them to the Lotus Sutra. There are others who continue to cling to the other sutras and never move on to the Lotus Sutra. And there are still others who not only continue to uphold the other sutras, but are so intensely attached to them that they even declare the Lotus Sutra to be inferior to such sutras. But the votaries of the Lotus Sutra should now keep the following in mind. The Lotus Sutra says that just as among the rivers, streams, and other bodies of water, for example, the ocean is foremost, so a person who upholds the Lotus Sutra is likewise. It goes on to say that just as among all the stars and their like, the moon, a god's sun, is foremost, so a person who upholds the Lotus Sutra is likewise. Keep these words in mind. All of the wise persons of Japan at the present time are like the host of stars, and I, Nichiren, am like the full moon. Question: is there anyone from times past who has spoken the way you have just done? Answer: the great teacher Dingyo states one should understand that the sutras on which the other schools base their teachings are not foremost among the sutras, and those people who can uphold such sutras are not foremost among the multitude, but the Lotus Sutra, which is upheld by the Tendai Lotus School, is the foremost of all the sutras, and therefore those who can uphold the sutra, the lotus, are foremost among living beings. This is borne out by the words of the Buddha himself. How could it be mere self-praise? A tick that attaches itself to the tail of a chi'ilin can race 1,000 miles in one day, and a worthless man who accompanies a wheel-turning king can circle in an instant about the 4 continents of the world. Who would question the truth of such matters? Dengyo's words, how could it be a mere self-praise? How could it be mere self-praise? Should be kept in mind. If what he says is correct, then a person who upholds the Lotus Sutra just as it teaches must be superior to the king Brahma and more worthy than the Lord Chakra, which are on the Gohonzon. If you have asuras to help you, then you can lift and carry even Mount Sumeru. If you have dragons in your employ, you can drain all the water in the ocean until it runs dry. The great teacher Dengyo says, those who praise him will receive blessings that will pile up as high as Mount Calm and Bright, while those who slander him will be committing a fault that will condemn them to the hell of incessant suffering. And the Lotus Sutra says, if this person should slander a sutra such as this, or on seeing those who read, recite, copy, and uphold this sutra, should despise, hate, envy, or bear grudges against them, when his life comes to an end, he will enter the Avicii hell. If these golden words of Shakyamuni Buddha, the Lord of Teachings, are true, if the testimony of their truth given by many treasures Buddha is not false, and if the sign of assent given by the Buddhas of the 10 directions when they extended their tongues is to be trusted, then there can be no doubt that all living beings in Japan at the present time are destined to fall into the hell of incessant suffering for persecuting me and not believing me. The 8-volume Lotus Sutra says, in latter ages, if there are those who accept, uphold, read, and recite this sutra, which we all do, their wishes will not be in vain, and in this present existence they will gain the reward of good fortune. It also says, if there is anyone who offers alms to them and praises them, then in this present existence he will have manifest reward for it. In these two passages are the words, in this present existence they will gain the reward of good fortune, and in this present existence they will have manifest reward for it. These two statements in the Chinese original each comprise 8 characters. If these 16 characters are meaningless, and if Nichiren does not receive some great reward in this present life, then these golden words of the Thus Come One will be in the same category as the empty lies of Devadatta, and the testimony of many treasures Buddha that guaranteed their truth will be no different from the baseless assertions of Kokalika. Then none of the people who slandered the correct teaching will ever be condemned to the Avicii hell, and the Buddhas of the 3 existences will not exist. But could such a thing be possible? Therefore I say to you, my disciples, try practicing the Lotus Sutra teaching. Pardon me. I say to my disciples, try practicing as the Lotus Sutra teaches, exerting yourselves without begrudging your lives. Test the truth of Buddhism now. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Question. In the Lotus Sutra, we find this passage, we care nothing for our bodies or lives, but are anxious only for the unsurpassed way. And the Nirvana Sutra says, for example, it is like a royal envoy skilled in discussion and clever with expedient means, who, when sent on a mission to another land, would rather, even though it costs him his life, in the end conceal none of the words of his ruler. Wise persons, too, do this. In the midst of ordinary people and without begrudging their lives, those who are wise should, without fail, proclaim the Thus Come One's prized teaching from the correct and equal sutras of the great vehicle that is, all living beings possess the Buddha nature. But under what circumstances should one be prepared to sacrifice one's life and safety? I would like you to explain the matter to me in detail. Answer. When I first embarked upon the Buddhist practice, I supposed that the statement, we care nothing for our bodies or lives, meant receiving the imperial command and traveling to China the way the men like Dengyo, Kobo, Jikaku, and Chisho did. Or that it meant setting out from China as the Tripitaka master Tsang did, traveling all the way to India, dying 6 times in the attempt and striving again with each rebirth. Or I thought that it meant throwing away one's life the way the boy Snow Mountains did in order to learn the second half of a verse. We know who that is, right? That's, the boy Snow Mountains, right? Okay. Did in order to learn, jumped into the mouth of the demon in order to hear the second half of the verse. Or that I thought it might, or I thought that it meant throwing away one's life the way the boy Snow Mountains did in order to learn the second half of a verse, or burning one's arms as an offering for 72,000 years the way Bodhisattva Medicine King did, which we heard from the Lotus Sutra. But if we go by the passage of scripture that you have quoted, these are not the kind of thing that is meant. As to this passage of the sutra, okay, we care nothing for our bodies or lives. The sutra earlier describes the 3 types of enemies who will vilify and attack one with swords and staves, and in all likelihood deprive one of life and body. And to understand the passage in the Nirvana Sutra that speaks of carrying out one's duty, even though it costs him his life, we should look at the passage later on in the same sutra that says there are ikchantikas, or persons of incorrigible disbelief. They pretend to be arhats, living in deserted places and speaking slanderously of the correct and equal sutras of the great vehicle. When ordinary people see them, they will all suppose that they are true arhats and speak of them as great bodhisattvas. Speaking of the third of the three types of enemies, the Lotus Sutra says, or there will be forest-dwelling monks wearing clothing of parched rags and living in retirement. They will be respected and revered by the world as though they were arhats who possess the 6 transcendental powers. And the Parinirvana Sutra says there will also be ikchantikas who resemble arhats, but who commit evil deeds. These passages from the sutra speak of powerful enemies of the correct teaching. Such enemies are to be found not so much among evil rulers and evil ministers, among non-Buddhists and devil kings, or among monks who disobey the precepts. Rather, they are those great slanderers of the law who are to be found among the eminent monks who appear to be upholders of the precepts and men of wisdom. The great teacher Myosho, speaking of such men, says, the third group is the most formidable of all. This is because the second and third ones are increasingly harder to recognize for what they really are. The 5th volume of the Lotus Sutra says, this Lotus Sutra is the secret storehouse of the Buddhas, the thus come ones. Among the sutras, it holds the highest place. In this passage, we should note the words, it holds the highest place. The phrase comprises 4 characters in the original. If we are to believe this passage, then we must say that the votary of the Lotus Sutra is one who proclaims the Lotus Sutra to stand supreme above all the other sutras. Let us suppose now that there are many people who are held in great respect by the ruler, and that these people claim that there are sutras superior to the Lotus Sutra, disputing with the votary of the Lotus Sutra on this point. They enjoyed the trust and support of the ruler and his ministers, while the votary of the Lotus Sutra is a person of low station and humble learning. Therefore, the whole nation joins in heaping abuse on him. If at that time he conducts himself in the manner of Bodhisattva never disparaging, or the scholar Bhadravuchi, and continues to assert the superiority of the Lotus Sutra, he will almost certainly lose his life. To practice with such resolve in the face of this threat is the most important thing of all. I'll say that again. To practice with such resolve in the face of this threat is the most important thing of all. So to be confronted with people that say, if you don't give this up, I'm going to kill you, you say, go for it. That's what he's talking about. All right? That's what happens when you lose the freedom of religion.
Yeah.
Now, I, Nichiren, am confronting such a situation. Though I am a humble man, I proclaim that the great teacher Kobo and Jikaku, the Tripitaka master Shanmue, Chikangchi, and Pukung, and others of their kind, are potent enemies of the Lotus Sutra, and that, if the words of the sutra are to be trusted, they have without doubt fallen into the hell of incessant suffering. To proclaim such a thing as this is a very grave step. It would be easier to walk naked into a raging fire than to just give your life for the sake of the law. Easier to take up Mount Sumeru in one's hands and toss it away. Easier to hoist a great stone on one's back and walk across the ocean than to do what I have done. To establish the correct teaching in this country of Japan is indeed a difficult thing. If Shakyamuni Buddha, the Lord of Teachings, of the Pure Land of Eagle Peak, many treasures Buddha of the world of treasure purity, the Buddhas of the 10 directions who are Shakyamuni's emanations, the Bodhisattvas as numerous as the dust particles of 1,000 worlds who sprang up out of the earth, Brahma and Shakra, the gods of the sun and the moon, and the 4 heavenly kings do not conspicuously or inconspicuously give me their protection and lend me aid, then they will never know a single day or a single hour of peace and safety. So that ends it on page 585. And how are we doing on time? We got just enough time for me to read what I sent all of you once.
Yes.
Do you mind if I do that?
Yes.
All right.
You can.
Okay. Once again, this is on the mystic principle of true cause, and I will put this text into the comment section of today's Gosho. It's wasn't announced that I was going to do this, and once again, this isn't the only pass at this teaching that I'm going to make. This is like, again, walking the steps downward rather than trying to go up, because they would be so voluminous for me to give you all that information or spread it out. It will cause less confusion if I give you the Honmatsukyo of this teaching. Okay? So this is on the mystic principle of true cause. I'm not summarizing, I'm not referencing sections, I'm not summarizing, I'm not explaining from outside. This is an explanation from inside the Dharma realm, and allowed to speak, the text to speak as reality recognizing itself. So as I read this, Honnin Myosho, please think about each sentence and what it means deeply. And you cannot read what I sent you quickly. You've got to ponder it. This is a very dense explication. All right? Okay, so what is revealed in Honnin Myosho is not a doctrine, and Honnin Myosho is the mystic principle of true cause, right? Is not a doctrine explaining how enlightenment is attained, but a disclosure of how enlightenment has never been absent. The mystic principle of true cause does not describe a process that begins, advances, and culminates, as we normally might think. It reveals the ground upon which all appearing, advancing, and culminating have always already been standing. This is why the Buddhas alone can understand and share the true aspect of all phenomena. What they perceive is not an exalted viewpoint added on to life, but the direct recognition that life itself is already complete, already endowed, already expressing the law in every moment of its appearance. Life, all life. The true cause is not a point of origin located in time. It is not a latent seed buried in the past, nor a potential awaiting to ripen in the future. To think of cause in this way is to remain bound by provisional logic, and this dissolves it, where ignorance precedes practice, and practice precedes enlightenment. The Daishonin does not refine this logic. He dissolves it. True cause is the original functioning of life itself, the beginningless activity through which cause and effect arise together without separation, without sequence, without delay. This is why the true cause cannot be grasped as an object of thought. It must be recognized as the very activity of one's own life. From this standpoint, the 10 factors revealed in the Expedient Means chapter are no longer attributes arranged in order, nor qualities layered into existence one by one. Appearance does not arise first and wait for nature to follow. Nature is not hidden behind appearance. Its entity is not a substance beneath phenomena. Power and influence are not capacities added later. Internal cause does not sleep in the present, nor does manifest effect arrive later from the future. Consistency from beginning to end is not something proven after a process has completed. All 10 are the single life moment expressing itself whole. They're all simultaneous. When perceived from outside, they appear divisible. When inhabited, they are inseparable. This inseparability is what Honmatsukyo To declares. Original and manifest are not two points connected by time. They are identity revealed through function. The original is not behind us, and the manifest is not ahead of us. The original is what is functioning now, and the manifest is that functioning made visible. Kukyo does not signify a final destination. It signifies complete equivalence throughout. Delusion is complete as delusion. Enlightenment is complete as enlightenment. Completion is not added later. It is recognized now in this single moment of life. The recognition does not negate practice, it clarifies it. Practice does not produce Buddhahood. Practice reveals what has always been operative. Faith does not manufacture enlightenment. Faith aligns life with the cause that is already functioning as itself. Chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is not a means to reach a future state. It is the audible activity of the mystic law expressing itself within the very conditions of confusion, desire, struggle, and resolve. There's no separation. The sound does not travel toward enlightenment. It is enlightenment sounding itself as life. This is why the Dharma realm is neither broad nor narrow. Breadth and narrowness belong to measurement, not to reality as it is. The Dharma realm is the field in which all dharmas dwell according to their own internal coherence. Each realm conforms to its own rules because those rules arise naturally from the life condition being expressed. Hell conforms to the rules of hell. Buddhahood conforms to the rules of Buddhahood. Yet these are not sealed compartments. They bow to one another because they mirror one another. They're inseparable. The Dharma realm bows to itself. The Bodhisattva, never disparaging, does not bow as a moral gesture layered onto doctrine. He bows from the standpoint of Honmatsu Kukyo To. When he bows, the Buddha nature inherent in those before him bows in return. The Buddha nature inherent in those before him bows in return, whether recognized or not. Arrogance does not negate this bow. Rejection does not cancel it. Even denial functions within the Dharma realm. The self and other are not reconciled by effort. They are revealed as non-dual by insight. From within this dwelling, the simultaneity of cause and effect ceases to be a philosophical assertion and becomes lived reality. Suffering is no longer evidence of separation from Buddhahood. It becomes the field in which the true cause asserts itself. Desire is no longer an obstacle, it becomes fuel. Error is no longer terminal failure, it becomes manifestation still carrying the original within it. Repentance is not humiliation, it is realignment, the return of awareness to what has never ceased to function. This is why beginningless time cannot be understood by the unenlightened mind. It is not infinite duration. It is the absence of an origin apart from manifestation. Life does not begin and then become enlightened. Life appears as enlightenment misunderstood. When illuminated by the wisdom of the mystic law, even delusion is revealed as functioning within Buddhahood, not outside it. The voice hearers cannot perceive this because they still seek liberation away from phenomena. The cause awakened ones cannot perceive it because they still rely on conditional origination. Even bodhisattvas, so long as they imagine stages leading toward a final attainment, remain oriented toward progression. The Buddha alone sees that there has never been a departure from the Dharma realm, and therefore no return is required. This is the mystic principle of true cause. This is the Honmatsu Kukyo To lived. This is the Dharma realm speaking from within itself. Nothing has been added, nothing's been removed, nothing's been delayed. So do you understand this is not a linear way of thinking. This is a dimensional, it's within the field of Buddhahood that you should try to perceive it. And that's why I said you need to chant, and the Gohonzon will reveal it to you. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.